each of you to watch. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. And Jan will be doing the demonstration here momentarily. But I'm going to share something with you, and I'm going to be repeating this when others come in, because there are still others coming in. How many of you have had an opportunity to register for our new messaging service that we're doing? Okay? Some of you are getting that. Again, I want to apologize if you're getting duplicates. You will probably get multiple messages there's going to be some redundancy as we're transitioning over to a new system. Those of you who have not done so yet, just raise your hand, and I'm going to share this with you. I don't have that many. I was hoping to have it up on the screen, but he couldn't put it up on the screen because of the fact that he has the other presentation loaded and ready to go. So, am I on here? What happened? Somehow this cut out. Is our battery dead? Low battery. Yeah, some people say I don't need a mic, but I'll use one anyway. Okay, so if you've not had a chance to register for our new messaging service, we want to encourage you to do so. And as I said, I had hoped to have a graphic up on the screen, but unfortunately, he couldn't put it up with this situation with the computer here. But I want to let you know we're using this new messaging service that will allow us to do two things. The other one only allowed us to send emails. This will allow us to send emails and text messages. There are some people that don't have smartphones to receive text messages, but they do have email addresses. So no matter whether I send it out as a text or whether I send it out as an email, you're still going to get it, okay? So we're trying to up our method of communication and really try to get information out more rapidly to you. And I will tell you at the conclusion of our presentation tonight what our next SimiFit presentation is going to be, and in fact the next few SimiFit presentations. And I think that you will like what we're going to be sharing. So if you've not yet had a chance to register for this, Jan, are you ready to go? Okay. You can go ahead and get in place. If you've not had a chance to register for our new messaging service, it's really, really easy to do. There's a number that you text, and it'll be explained it on this sheet. You text, you need to use your messaging app in your either iPhone or Android device, and it needs to be sent to 84576. It's right on here. And the keyword is SimiFit, but it's spelled SEMEFIT. And it is not case sensitive. I have it this way just so that it emphasizes, but it's not case sensitive. It will give you a response. Now be careful, because sometimes people have had a challenge sending it through because it likes to, sometimes your autocorrect will try to correct that and make sure that it goes through, that there's no spaces, that it just says SimiFit, and it will respond back to you with a link. It will give you a link, and it will say, it will give you the link, or it'll give you an opportunity to enter your email address. Don't enter your email address. Hit the link and open that up on a web page on your smartphone. And when you do that, it will give you an opportunity to enter your first name, your last name, and your email address. It's going to ask you if you want to create a password. Skip that. Don't create a password. Once you enter your first name, last name, and your email address, and you hit next, you're in the system. And we'll be able to communicate with you in the future about our upcoming SimiFit event. So I'm going to let Jan go ahead and begin, and I'm going to walk around with these little pieces here, and if you've not had a chance to do so, just raise your hand, and I'll put one of these in there, and then you can register. And if you have any questions, if you're having some technical issues at the end, just talk to me, and we'll make sure you get registered. All right, going to turn it over to Jan, and she is going to show you how to prepare what you ate this evening.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoy the sweet baked lentils. You know, a lot of times your baked beans have way too much sugar in them. And, you know, when we took Diabetes Undone, one of the things that they encourage us to do is have 1 cup of legumes every day. Because when you eat legumes, that helps you for the next 24 hours with your blood sugar. And so this one is very low in sugar, but it still has just a little bit of that taste. So what I did in this recipe was I used the diced and fire roasted tomatoes. They're organic. And at home, for what you ate today, I whizzed them up. But I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to put it in the lentils. And one thing about lentils, if you don't want to take the time to cook them up, you can buy them at Trader Joe's already cooked. So, I mean, this is really a really easy dish to make. And so then I have 1 onion that is chopped up, and it calls for 1 tablespoon of molasses, so it's not much for the amount of legumes. It gives just a little bit of that hint of sweet flavor. And 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I'm using sea salt. You mix it up. You stick it in your casserole dish. And you bake it at 350 for an hour. And you have some baked legumes that are really tasty. Now, if you're going to have potatoes, you want to do potatoes when you have legumes because it's a starch. And so, you want to the problem with potatoes is what we put on them, right? Most people put on butter, they put on sour cream, they put on, all kinds of other things, sometimes meat, whatever. And these potatoes, this also is from the Diabetes Undone cookbook, the Plant to Plate, and it's roasted potatoes. So I cut up 3 pounds of potatoes. I'm adding the onion to it, and it calls for 1 tablespoon of salt, and of oil. You don't have to use that much. You can just spray a little bit. The only reason you use it is so that it doesn't stick to the pan, and so that the seasonings stick to it. And you mix that up. And the recipe calls for just sticking this in the oven for 35 minutes and baking it at 450. So you're going to put it in here. I don't know, this may not be big enough. Yeah, I don't have an oven here. That's true.
But they do on TV.
Yeah, we don't have a oven in our church. Okay, so then after baking it for 35 minutes, you can add your fresh herbs. And in this case, I have rosemary and thyme. And I just sprinkle that. And I'm going to sprinkle some in there. And then, just continue baking it. And it bakes for about an hour or until it's tender. And that's the easy way to have some healthy potatoes and to have a little bit of sweet with your legumes. So that's what we served tonight. Now, you have recipes for that I gave for the other things, such as the cookies and also the dressing, the salad dressing. So, and again, I chose to not use the nuts and the tofu. Did it with brown rice and coconut milk, just for a variation on mayonnaise. And then just did a little package of the seasoning mix and put in the tablespoon per recipe. All right, that does it for today.
All right, thank you, Jan. I hope you enjoyed that. Was that a tasty meal you had this evening? Yeah, that's good. Healthy doesn't mean that it has to taste nasty. Now, they've done a lot. They've done a lot to improve the flavor of things, that going to plant-based. You may have heard me say before, they're probably about, I'm going to guess it was maybe 17 years ago, Jan and I were thinking about moving to a plant-based diet, and we went to a store and got some stuff, and I mean to tell you, I thought I was chewing on sawdust. And I said, oh my goodness, if this is what it's going to mean, I'm not interested in it. But, we've discovered that healthy doesn't have to taste bad. In fact, it can taste even better and obviously make you feel better. So we're delighted. Thank you, Jan, for sharing that, and hope you enjoyed that meal this evening. Tonight, I will be sharing what's happening in our upcoming SimiFit presentations, but I will do that after our main presentation this evening, and I'm delighted to have Edwin Velarde here, and his wife, Christina, is here as well with him, and he is going to share about his epic journey against diabetes, and I've known Edwin, I guess, now for a year, and he's become a good friend, and I'm just delighted that he's here this evening to share this journey that he has been on with diabetes and things that he's done to mitigate the challenges and the struggles that he's faced. So please help me welcome Edwin Velarde.
Is it on?
Yeah, now you're on.
Hello, am I in? All right, good. Let me show you a video first before we start anything. Yeah, lights. Diabetes. I was diagnosed at age 29. For decades, I struggled to control my blood glucose. A few years ago, a good friend gave me a bike. This sparked me to find a new nutrition program. Now, my blood glucose is stable and have found new energy I never thought existed. Diabetes. 422 million people have diabetes around the world, while nearly half are undiagnosed. 3.8 million deaths are caused by diabetes and high blood glucose. Diabetes. We are amidst a global diabetes epidemic. If you and I don't do anything about it, the future numbers will grow exponentially. This is my epic journey against diabetes. One Rotarian on a bicycle from the great city of London, United Kingdom, to the Rotary International Convention in Hamburg, Germany, to connect Rotarians and raise awareness about diabetes. Having type 1 diabetes, I know I cannot change. I hope we can change one life. Okay, guys, I'm back. Hope you like that. Of course, my name is Edwin Velarde, and I'm a resident of the Conejo Valley. Before we begin, I want to begin with something else. I want to tell you a story about a king that was gifted 2 peregrine falcons. It was a wonderful bird. So the king gave the 2 peregrine falcons to a head falconer. After a couple of months, the head falconer came back to the king and said, "Your Majesty, the one falcon is doing well, is flying high in the sky majestically. However, the other has not moved from its branches the day it arrived." The king was very disappointed with this news. So he summoned his wise men, healers, and sorcerers to help him with the problem. But no one could make the falcon fly. You see, the peregrine falcon is the fastest animal on the planet. It could reach speeds of 200 miles per hour during a dive, and it could top at 240 miles per hour. That's fast. That's Daytona 500, big time. Okay? With that capability comes something else, many things. The peregrine falcon has got a strong heart. It could beat from 600 to 900 beats per minute. That's strong. And it delivers the blood throughout its body, giving oxygen and nutrients when it's doing some high-speed flight. Pretty amazing. Now, at high speed, breathing becomes very difficult. The high wind pressure could damage the lungs. But the peregrine falcon has this specialized cone-shaped bone in its nostrils that regulates air for breathing. Quite amazing. Now, this is so elegant that modern jet engines have adopted this design. If you look at any jet engines, you'll see some cones in front of the engines. Okay? Now, imagine what those eyes are going through at that speed. Your eyes will dry up, and the littlest debris could make this creature go blind instantly. But the peregrine falcon has got a third eyelid that clears and lubricates the eyes. Quite amazing. Well, the king, he was thinking that, I've tried just about everything, but I think I need someone that knows the countryside to understand the nature of this problem. So he summoned the farmer and assigned him the task. Well, the next morning, when he woke up in the morning, he looked out the palace window, To his surprise, he saw two peregrine falcons flying up above the palace gardens, soaring majestically. He was so happy, but all of a sudden he got curious. He said, how did the farmer do it? So he summoned the farmer again and said, while he was sitting in front of him, and say, how'd you do it, farmer? How did you make the falcon fly? Meek, mild-mannered farmer came up to him and said, Your Majesty, I slowly came up to the tree where the bird was sitting, and I cut the branch off, and fly the falcon went. You see, we're all made to realize our great potential as a human being. But for many times, we cling to the comfortable. We cling to the popular. There are so many things out there that we could be accomplishing, but unfortunately, many of it will remain undiscovered. At 29, I was diagnosed with diabetes. At the time, my physician said that I was a walking heart attack ready to happen. And I couldn't believe what I was saying. I was feeling fine. I just went to the doctor just to get checked out. And diabetes is not a stranger to me. My family has a long history of diabetes. My grandfather, Pastor Victoria Revelo, one of the first ordained ministers of the Adventist Church in the Philippines, was a double amputee. He was diabetic. My uncle Jose, a highly talented jazz pianist, lost his battle to kidney failure because of his diabetes. Uncle Mauro, Pastor Mauro Arevalo, that followed my grandfather's footsteps, passed from a massive heart attack in the tennis court. My mom, a trained classical pianist and a business person, she had gestational diabetes when she was pregnant with me. She was never able to shake it off. Knew her all my life as having diabetes. She passed from heart failure, complication of her diabetes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, even though I knew that I was probably bound to have diabetes. I was feeling fine. I was put on a regimen. The doctor prescribed medications, and I followed. I was a good patient. But after a couple of months, the doctor called me back and said, you're going to have to take insulin regularly. That was a tough one. I knew that I will never be a normal person again. So I lived my life, my married life, raising our kids. Every morning, I would test my blood. I'd poke my finger and then test my blood sugar. And in the evenings, I will do the same thing. I'll test my blood sugar before I take in my basal insulin. Okay. Before every meal, I will test my blood sugar again, poke my finger, put a drop in my glucose meter, and depending on the reading and the type of food and the amount of food I'm going to eat, I give myself varying dose of bolus insulin. I lived through all this, lived my life doing the regimen, following what I needed to do. But I had to accept that I will not have that much energy living with diabetes. Sleep was never complete. I was always thirsty. After every lunchtime, I always looked for the strongest cup of coffee. Not too many coffee drinkers here, right? But it really never worked. You see, diabetes, if you folks take away anything from today, is this right here. Diabetes is a condition in which the human body does not efficiently use or unable to produce enough insulin for type 2 and type 1. Okay. Type 2 is resistance to insulin, and type 1 is a autoimmune disorder where your body attacks the cells that produce insulin. Insulin It's one of the more important hormones that we produce when you don't have diabetes. It helps metabolize nutrition to energy. People with diabetes, when they're not managed properly, or unmanaged in some cases, tends to damage internal organs. Complications of diabetes are, number one, kidney failure. Diabetes is the leading cause of kidney failure. Blindness. Diabetes is a leading cause of blindness among working adults. Loss of limbs. Diabetes is the leading cause of non-trauma lower limb amputations. Heart attack and strokes. The whole world, its emergency rooms are riddled with people that have heart attacks and strokes, only to find out they have elevated blood sugar levels. Back in 2012, I was president of the Rotary Club of Westlake Village, and a good friend of mine gave me a bike at that time. And I figured, he was upgrading to a carbon bike, and he had this aluminum bike that I was giving me. I said, hey, why not? It's free. And then I figured I have room in the garage, so I'll just put it in the garage for a little bit. We were competitive, my buddy Tom, and it was his way of challenging me to take up cycling. So the following weekend, when I got the bike, I started riding around town. The hills of Conejo Valley. After 3 miles, I was dead. My legs were stiff, my knees were shaking, my calves were cramping. I couldn't go on. I had to call my wife and said, Christina, you have to pick me up. I can't go on. But you know how much she loves me. She says, Edwin, I'm doing errands. You're going to have to walk your bike home. Well, she might have done me a favor doing that. Okay? That was a long walk back home. I was so mad at myself. I wasn't that old. And I shouldn't have any problem riding a simple bicycle around town. So I set myself up to ride my bike regularly. After many weeks, I got past 3 miles, became 5, then 10, 20. I was feeling pretty good. I was getting healthier. My fitness was improving. But something started happening. I was experiencing extreme hypoglycemia regularly. Does anybody know what hypoglycemia is? Okay. Well, the normal blood sugar is about 80 to 120 mg/dL. When you get to about 70 or 60, that's quite critical, and the doctor says that you have to do something about it because you could shut down. I was seeing 40 mg/dL, at times even lower than that. Okay. When it hits, it was really scary. It feels like all your energy has been sucked out of you, could hardly move, shaking, sweating, can't move a muscle. I was lucky enough to have the presence of mind and enough energy to just nudge my wife and say the H words, 2 H words, hypo, help. She was able to help me out. Without her, my wife right next to me during those times, I wouldn't be here sitting, talking to you guys about this. So anyway, I started changing my diet. I ate more protein. Did some recovery nutrition that are, that you see commercially. Ate before riding, ate after riding, ate before going to bed, all these things. My physician said that to eat more and take it easy on the bike, back off on the cycling. I was having so much fun, I wasn't going to have it. So I started researching and taking a look at what diabetes is truly all about. I dug and dug and dug. Understood what diabetes is, read about insulin and what it does to your body, what its purpose are. Looked at nutrition, looked into vegetarianism, pescatarianism, Mediterranean diet, keto, paleo, so on and so forth. Nothing helped. I rediscovered fats, protein, carbs, macronutrients, vitamins, building blocks, and energy sources. I started experimenting different types of nutrition with the intensity of my cycling. After many, many weeks of trials and error, I got to a point where I found the right balance. I was able to ride my bike with a lot of energy. And then the most important thing is, I don't have nighttime hypoglycemia anymore. And you know what's so amazing? Is that I reduced my insulin in the process. I reduced my basal insulin by 85%. And I never had to use, hardly to use bolus insulin. It was awesome. I was feeling lots of energy. Wish I had this much energy over the years. Started riding 30, 40, 50 miles, 100 miles. No problem whatsoever, no hypoglycemia at night. I wished I could turn the hand of time back. Just imagine the time I missed spending with my wife and kids because of my lack of energy back then. I wasn't going to get that back. I started thinking about my mom, my uncles. My grandfather. Poor families in developing countries. I wasn't going to get that back, not at the time. I really started wishing. I was so disappointed. I wished I really could turn the time back for what I've learned. But something whispered in me and said, you're not going to get it back, but now I wish that others will start a new timeline. You see, the global diabetes epidemic is very real. As the video told you, there's about 422. I said 425 here. The last study that I saw is about 463 million people who have diabetes. And nearly half of them don't even know they have the condition. This is something remarkable because this is happening right now. But imagine, this is as a result of the number of people with diabetes in the last 3 decades have quadrupled. Isn't that a shame? 3.8 million people die from diabetes. And I hate saying this, but if diabetes was an ethnic group, this would be the worst genocide we've ever seen in the history of mankind. The epic journey against diabetes is my personal advocacy. And my purpose is to raise awareness about diabetes, the condition, its perils, and the global diabetes epidemic. Over the last many years, I've ridden my bike from Busan to Seoul, South Korea, from Chicago to Atlanta, from Chicago to Toronto, and just lately, from London to Hamburg, and engaging communities along the way. Did you all know that we have a diabetes belt in the United States? No, we're not talking about Batman's utility belt. It is a diabetes belt, where the percentage of diabetes is about 13%. The national average is about 8.5% or 8.3%. Yeah. In 2017, from the very first Rotary Club in Chicago, I rode through the states of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and then ended up in Georgia. Sound?
Edwin Baylor.
Yep.
California man is riding his bike from Chicago to Atlanta to show people that having diabetes doesn't have to slow you down. Edwin Baylor Day he left Chicago on Tuesday Today, he made a stop in downtown Lafayette to have lunch and to visit with his cousin who lives in the area. His wife and son are joining him in their car for the entire 800-mile trip. Baylor Day struggled with diabetes for more than 20 years until he began riding his bike for exercise about 3 years ago. He says he cut his insulin intake by 85% and is now in control of the disease.
There are times that we don't have a choice of having diabetes, but we do have a choice in making it part of our lives, own it, and then work with it, and you're able to live a better quality of life. In 2018, from the Rotary headquarters in Evanston, Illinois, many Rotary leaders from Wisconsin, Missouri, and around the Chicagoland area rode with me around the city of Chicago. And then from there, I continued on my journey to the states of Indiana and Michigan. Once I got over to Canada, a group of Rotarians rode with me from the border of Canada to the birthplace of insulin in London, Ontario. It was an amazing experience. Just imagine being in the house of the gentleman that saved countless lives, including myself. Did you all know that Sir Frederick Banting, the father of insulin, he sold his patent to insulin for a mere $1. How many times do we find that now? Then last year, I rode my bike from London, crossed over the English Channel. From France, I rode the Flanders region of Belgium and went to Holland and then finished in Hamburg, Germany. Along the way, we had symposium in the University of Antwerp and also in the seat of Zwolle.
Members are arriving from around the world. We're delighted to meet Edwin, who just arrived in Hamburg after riding his bike to help raise global awareness for diabetes.
The challenges of diabetes and the challenges of actually completing a 1,200-kilometer ride. It feels really good, and it's an honor to see you folks and to be here in Hamburg.
Let me bring your attention back to something that's really very dear to me. The Western Pacific region, that's where 37% of the people living with diabetes around the world can be found. With 1.7 million lives lost in that region due to diabetes, it has experienced the most deaths from anywhere in the world. The type 5 countries that has a high rate of diabetes is China, can't read that very well, China, Indonesia, Japan, Thailand, and the Philippines. And in the Philippines, experts are saying that within the next 20 to 25 years, people with diabetes are going to more than double, which means that more than 100,000 Filipinos will die every single year, incrementally to that time. I was fortunate enough last year, also in August, to have ridden my bike around the Philippines. If you are looking at that one loop that you see down below with the little water and the little island in the middle there, that is Taal Volcano. And you've all heard about Taal Volcano. I've ridden around that area. And one of the highlights of being riding in the Philippines, at Enchanted Kingdom, which is one of the theme parks, hosted a breakfast for the Epic Journey Against Diabetes. And then we had a press conference. At that press conference, I took it to the journalists and told them that healthcare professionals are not the only ones responsible for the diabetes epidemic. We need to write more articles about the disease. We need to ask the right questions from our leaders and from experts. Filmmakers have to start making films that exposes, documentaries that expose this epidemic that's killing millions of people. As much as I say that to them there, we have to do the same thing here. We have to start talking about this amongst ourselves and understand we have a problem. Now, a little bit about background about the Rotarian Action for Diabetes. I'm just going to read this thing for you guys. We're almost done here. The aim of the is to address the global diabetes epidemic by raising awareness to the humanitarian eyes, hearts, and minds of 1.2 million people, Rotarians, members of Rotary International, and other individuals, organizations who wants to join us with our effort. We are here to inspire, provide guidance, promote, assist, and support humanitarian projects that addresses the 5 areas of focus to address the global diabetes epidemic. What is that 5 areas of focus? A couple years ago, I introduced the 5 areas of focus to address the diabetes epidemic. Some of them are being addressed here, right here in this facility. Number 1 is awareness. Imagine the 50% that don't know they're diabetics. If we could just let them know that they are, imagine the many lives that we could save. I was one of them. I would have never known. I could have just faded away from the face of the earth if I didn't know that I have diabetes. Prevention. What can we do to prevent? Take a look at what it says here, according to the WHO. The cause of diabetes are complex, but the rise is due to part an increase in number of people who are overweight, including an increase in obesity and widespread lack of physical activity. That's the WHO. They know what they're talking about. Treatment. In the poorest countries, only 1 in 3 has access to insulin and other forms of medication for diabetes. Management. My condition now is because of the proper management I've implemented myself. Type 2 diabetes in most cases can be reversed with proper management. If you can't prevent it, if you're already there, it could be reversed for most cases. Not everybody, but it's worth a try, don't you think? Complications. There are those that can't be helped with their condition anymore. They have loss of limb, kidney failures, blindness. We need to help those people because they can be contributing factors into their communities. They need that to feel like they're human again. Well, in the end, at my closing, just want to let you know that I feel that you and I are the peregrine falcons of the world. We soar high and fly majestically because of all the good things that we do here on earth. We have to stay healthy to be proper instruments of good in this world. And I feel that starting with ourselves and our circle of influence, we all could take on the global diabetes epidemic. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Edwin. Before you escape, maybe some of you might have some questions you want to ask him. Anybody have a question you want to ask him?
Yes.
About his journey?
Before any questions, I have here a type 2 diabetes risk assessment form that I encourage everyone to take or bring to your loved ones. Okay? This is the Finnish from Finland, the Diabetes Association, and they're one of the pioneers in doing a sheet like this to understand whether you're at high risk of diabetes. I will have them here in the front. When we're done, we could always distribute that. I won't need to see your answer. There won't be any tests.
All right, anybody with any questions that you want to ask Edwin?
Go ahead.
Okay, here, let's get you on because this is being broadcast. So.
Oh, I see. My name is Joyce, and my husband Costa. We have a 21-year-old son who is diagnosed at age 16, type 1.
Mm-hmm.
He manages his treatments. What he is experiencing is the excessive fatigue and tiredness, and it keeps him in a state of depression. And we've learned everything that we can, and we try to bring it to him, but somehow his age,
How old is he now?
21,
21.
we're trying to make that aha moment for him that you had.
I wish you'd here. I would
Pardon?
have loved to talk to him.
I would love for you to talk to him, and that's my question. How can we get him to connect with your,
Before I leave, I'm going to give you a business card.
okay, perfect.
Just kind of chat with him a little
Perfect.
bit. But I'll give you a little bit of background for type 1 diabetes. A lot of times, you see, diabetes is very complex to even try to manage it, because there's so many things that are against what you're trying to do to make your diabetes better. Number one is the mainstream form of nutrition, okay? Not only that, our culture, what we were raised, what our taste buds are like. From when we were kids, we grew up tasting different things. Every different regions in the world have different issues with this, okay? And with that, you know, I mean, technology, you know, WHO says that, you know, we lack of physical activity, okay? Very, very important. But foremost, I think, is the culture of nutrition strategy. That's very, very important. That's what I found. That's actually what got me to where I'm at now. Understanding what each thing that I put in my mouth is going to do for me, and understanding what nutrition is for. It's not entertainment.
Yes, I try to present him with all of the information that we get, but it's just this
It has to be fun for him.
this hurdle that
Yeah.
he can't seem to get over, and he's not willing to give up his food. He's
Yeah.
at the age where he's trying to be independent, but he can't quite be independent, and it
Well,
angers
yeah.
him, you
Yeah,
know.
I-
So we keep trying to get him to see it as a science, which he was strong at in school.
Yeah.
And I try to put everything in a science form, and
Does he do any sports?
ratios and
Does he do any
no,
sports?
no, he's quite allergic to outdoor grasses, trees.
Okay.
So but we've gone so far as to refuse to drive him places he does not drive. So we require him to walk because he would not exercise. So he walks at least 40 minutes a day now, to
Yeah.
and from work.
Yes.
But
I
the
feel for
denial
you.
part that you talked about is our struggle right now, and I think a lot of diabetics don't know that once they're diagnosed, depression comes hand in hand oftentimes, and that sometimes becomes the biggest struggle.
Yeah. Well, a lot.
Even though they learn to manage,
Yes.
like you said, they need to own it, and
Yes.
we need to get him to where he will own it.
Yes, because we are a different normal.
Yes, you are. You are.
Okay. Anybody
Thank you for that question, and what you bring out, Joyce, is very key. Many of you know, are aware of my journey. Now, I did not have type 1 diabetes. I didn't even have type 2 diabetes, but I was in the advanced stages of prediabetes. But I understand that struggle, and it comes to a point where you've got to engage the mind. You've got to make that first, that decision, I'm going to do this thing. Because until you make that decision, it doesn't matter, you know. What you eat then is immaterial, because you've got to make that choice that you're going to make those changes. So, you know, that's very important. Anybody else with a question to ask? Edwin.
What's her name? How about Bob?
Was there another question here?
Which was the most important hurdle in your life when you faced this?
The toughest hurdle getting to where I'm at is actually the knowledge of understanding what I needed to do and what diabetes is all about.
Where did you get this knowledge?
Well, I'm naturally a curious person. And so I did a lot of digging, a lot of reading. And I wasn't just going to read somebody's article and go with one. I have to cross-check everything to make sure that everything is proper, and prove it to myself as well that that's a proper thing.
Which did you find more important, nutrition or exercise?
Well, it's really funny. Both are important, But I have to tell you, but nutrition has to be a different mindset. Nutrition is not a tradition. Nutrition is not a 3 times a day. Nutrition is to nourish your body for what you do. When I ride my bike 50 miles, I eat differently. When I ride 100 miles, I eat differently. When I do 1,200 kilometers, I eat differently. When I'm at the office, I fuel my time at the office working the computer. Does that make sense to everybody? But see, that's easily said than done. But you have to understand, how do you fuel your lifestyle?
How did your family take all of this?
Well, my son Davis was my cycling partner. I always involve the family whatever I'm doing, so that helped a little bit. Christina was very supportive. They're happy that I'm doing this. My daughter had helped me in Seoul to Busan, my ride. Connor helped me going to Atlanta. And then Christina was helping me on going to Hamburg. They're all very supportive. I think it's as much of a fun thing for them to see me doing what I'm doing now as it is for myself.
Did they make any changes in their lifestyle because of what you had to do?
You know, I'd like to think that there's some influence there because of what I'm doing is also education for the people around you. Okay? I can't quantify that, but I know that that's what it is. As a parent, you know how that is, right? So I'd like to believe that there's some sort of an influence, a positive influence on the people around me, not just my kids, not just my family, but all my friends around me are asking me questions about this. The circle of influence I was talking about.
Thank you. Well, anybody else have time for maybe one more question? If
There
not,
was a lady that had a husband that's a type 1 that was asking me questions earlier. She might have left.
if any of you have any, yes, you have? Yeah.
No, not this time? No, just ask a question if you like. Anything.
Okay. All right. Well, if any of you have a question you want to talk with Edwin after, please feel free to do that.
You had a question? Yeah.
Somebody here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, are you plant-based diet?
You know, Pastor Phil asked me that one time, and you know what my answer is? I am plant-based, but I'm not vegetarian.
Okay.
So I eat more plants, but I eat other things. There are things I don't eat because of the blood sugar level that I have to watch out for. Okay?
Yeah, I have a nephew who is type 1, and he is very strict vegetarian, and he's still spiking quite a bit.
Yeah, you know, what I mentioned, I think it's this group that I mentioned it, that it's not the type of diet that you're following. It's really understanding what you need for your body. Because you could be whatever, be a vegetarian, could be, you know, vegan, but you have to understand what you're putting in your body. This program here teaches that.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, good. Was there one more? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering when you were diagnosed, and they said you had diabetes, but then they sent you home, probably hoping that you would be a diabetes 2, and then they found out you're diabetes 1.
Yes.
So how long did it take them to find out?
Oh, a few months.
Because
No.
usually when you are diagnosed with diabetes 1, you're right away at diabetes 1. You're in the honeymoon phase?
Yeah, well, yes and no. Well, it did help a little bit in the very beginning, but it was really not helping, you know, in general. So the best thing for them to do is to prescribe me with insulin. And when I did that, all sorts of other psychological things went through my mind, and oh my goodness, I'm not going to be normal ever again. I can never eat this, can never eat that, I can never do this, I can never do that. It's going to hurt every day, you know, I'm going to give myself shots, all those things. But that's the worst part of it, because I felt better when I did that. Not that it felt as good as now, but it felt better than what it was before. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great. Good deal. Well, Edwin, thank you so much for coming and for sharing this tonight. What a truly an epic journey that you've been on, but we can certainly be inspired by what you had to share tonight, and encourage you to continue this global push that you have, because as we heard him say, as we've heard other people who have come here to present say, this is not something, this diabetes epidemic is something that is just going crazy, and we have a choice of what we can do about it for ourselves personally. So again, want to thank you for coming tonight. Want to wrap things up here really quick by telling you about what's happening with our SimiFit program in the coming weeks. We will not meet a week from tonight. We do not have one on March 3, so make sure that you don't come here. If you come here, there won't be anything going on next Tuesday evening. But 2 weeks from tonight, on March 10, we're having a special presentation that's going to focus on what you can do to help yourself keep physically fit, okay? We're going to have a fitness expert here that is going to be sharing some great stuff about fitness and some good tools. Some of you may feel that you are too old to be active. There's always something that you can do. And so 2 weeks from tonight, we have a fitness specialist that's going to be here with us. Then on the 17th, that's the 10th of March, on the 17th of March, we have a presentation from a lady over in the Los Angeles area. She lives, I think, in North Hollywood. And she has an organization she calls the Ordinary Vegan. And she has some really great suggestions on the importance of eating the rainbow. You know, it's one thing if you eat broccoli, but what if you throw in some red cabbage in there and some other things, some eggplant? And she talks about the importance of eating the rainbow and how you can personally benefit from that. She's just recently written a book, and her book is to be released the 1st of March. So she'll be able to have her book here that outlines her ideas and how they can be beneficial to your life. So that is the 17th of March, and we will be sending you out notices about this, and I'm hoping to get them out in a soon enough fashion that you can share this with your friends and the like. And then the final SimiFit of our winter series, we'll take a brief hiatus, and then we'll begin some more in the spring. But our final one is on the 24th of March, and we have Catherine Stiles, who will be with us. Catherine is a lifestyle coach, and she's helped a lot of people make healthy choices and move in that direction. So if these are things that you're struggling with, she has some really practical things to help you figure out, how do I make those kinds of healthy choices to move in the right direction? So that is on the 24th of March. You'll want to be here for that presentation, and that will be the final one. Now, I want to say two more things. If you have not signed up if you've not signed up to receive our messages, or if you've had trouble signing up, just see me afterwards, and I want to make sure and get you in our database so that we can keep you well informed about what's going on. One last thing I want to say is that I was mentioning planning for our spring series, and I'm working on a number of speakers and presenters that will provide practical, good information. Today, this afternoon, I had an appointment with a physician here in Simi Valley. It was the first time I'd ever gone to see this physician. Some of you have been asking what happened to the side of my nose. Well, I can explain to you. This guy was a dermatologist, and he took care of a little growth that was on the side of my nose. And we got to talking. He and I got to talking back and forth, and he found out that I was pastor of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I think he took it off of the little information thing that asked about what I did for what my occupation was, and he was the one that brought it up. And he told me, he says, wow, he says, I have read a lot about what Seventh-day Adventists have done in the area of health and nutrition and the whole blue zones and all of that kind of stuff. And so he began to engage me in conversation. So as he's picking my brain and asking me what I did, I naturally shared with him my personal journey and my story that I have been through, that many of you have witnessed yourself, that, I lost 90 pounds by making some healthy lifestyle choices. Anyway, he was so excited about this. He told me, he says, I almost virtually follow a plant-based diet. And he says, I've been so inspired by some of the literature that I've read about this, that he says it's really been motivating me. And I told him about SimiFit and how we engage healthcare professionals. He said, listen, man, if you need me, I'd love to come and talk to people about how what they eat impacts the condition of their skin, their whole dermatology and everything like that. He says, I would love to do that, how that whole thing plays a vital role there. So I have not selected a date yet for him, but he will be one of our guests this spring, and I'm looking forward to it. If any of you, by the way, know of somebody that has something really worthwhile to share, a healthcare professional or somebody that has had an astounding story, let me know about that. We're always looking for people to invite to come and share their information or their journey with us that can help us on our own personal journey. So I want to say again, thank you for coming tonight. No SimiFit a week from tonight, but 2 weeks from tonight at 6:30 we'll begin again. And I think Jan will have something tasty for us to eat. I don't know what she's going to have planned, what's going to be cooking that night. Did you enjoy what she had tonight? Was that pretty tasty, wasn't it? It's good stuff. Yeah. She's very creative with that kind of stuff, and I always see her combing through recipe books. What are you doing? Oh, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to come up with for our next SimiFit recipe. So anyway, hope you enjoy that. Again, thank you for coming tonight, and remember, invite a friend, bring someone else with you, and we want to encourage other people on this journey of life. Thank you. Good night. God bless you.